Elena Morales leaned back against the sun-warmed rock, the sharp scent of alpine air filling her lungs. The Andes sprawled before her in jagged majesty, their snowy peaks shimmering in the afternoon light. She adjusted her pack, the weight of her gear a comforting presence after a long day's hike. The solitude, the grandeur, it was everything she'd hoped for. She took a swig of water and closed her eyes, savoring the stillness. And then it was gone. A low hum rippled through the air, barely audible at first, like a swarm of distant bees. It grew louder, deeper, vibrating in her chest. Elena opened her eyes, scanning the clear sky for the source, but there was nothing. No planes, no clouds, only the strange, pulsating noise. What the hell? She muttered, gripping her hiking stick. The hum turned into a high-pitched whine, and suddenly the world around her twisted. The colors of the mountains and sky bled together, fracturing into shimmering waves of light. She staggered, dropping to her knees as the ground beneath her seemed to dissolve. A sharp, searing pain shot through her skull, and then, nothing. Elena woke to cold metal beneath her cheek. The air was sterile, tinged with an acrid, chemical scent that made her gag. Her body felt heavy, her limbs sluggish as if she'd been drugged. She tried to move, but something restrained her wrists and ankles. Blinking hard, she forced her eyes open. Above her, alien glyphs pulsed in soft blue light across the ceiling. The symbols shifted, their patterns incomprehensible, and her heart sank. This wasn't a hospital. A faint clicking sound echoed, like the tapping of claws on metal. Panic surged as Elena twisted against her restraints, her mind racing. "Hello!" she shouted, her voice hoarse. "Who's there?" The clicking grew louder, closer. And then she saw it. A figure loomed above her, a creature of nightmare and precision. Its elongated, insect-like body gleamed with metallic plates that flexed as it moved. Two pairs of segmented arms extended from its torso, tipped with slender, dexterous claws. Its head was smooth and angular, with glowing eyes that shifted between vibrant green and gold. Elena froze, her breath caught in her throat. The creature tilted its head, emitting a series of sharp clicks and chirps. A smaller device floated beside it, projecting a stream of alien text and images into the air. The glyphs twisted, reshaped, and reformed, translating into fragmented Earth languages. Species: Homo sapiens. Classification: Category 3, Primitive. Potentially aggressive. What is this? Elena stammered. The creature ignored her, its claws deftly manipulating controls on the floating device. Thin beams of light scanned her body, leaving a tingling sensation in their wake. She flinched, but the restraints held firm. "Let me go," she yelled, her voice cracking. The alien paused, its glowing eyes narrowing. It emitted a low trill before turning away, its movements precise and unhurried. The floating device followed, leaving Elena alone in the cold, sterile room. She thrashed against the restraints, her breaths coming in panicked gasps. The metal bands held firm, but as she twisted, her fingers brushed something beneath her wrist, a faint seam in the otherwise smooth surface. Her mind clicked into gear. Think, Elena, think. She'd spent years solving engineering problems with limited resources. She could do this. Shifting her wrist, she pressed against the seam, feeling for any weakness. The restraint was sleek, alien, and far beyond anything she'd worked with, but no technology was perfect. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time blurred in the unchanging light of the room. Just as her fingers began to cramp, the restraint gave a soft hiss and released her wrist. Elena bit back a triumphant laugh and quickly freed her other hand, then her ankles. She swung her legs over the edge of the metal slab, her knees trembling as she stood. Her head spun, but she forced herself to stay upright. The room was featureless except for the slab and a single seamless door. No handle, no visible mechanism, just a smooth, silver panel. She approached cautiously, pressing her ear to the cool surface. Nothing. Elena stepped back, scanning the walls. If the panel opened once, it could open again. And if it was controlled by the same device that scanned her, maybe. Her gaze fell on a small console embedded in the wall near the slab. The symbols on it pulsed faintly, but the layout reminded her of touch interfaces she'd seen on Earth. Tentatively, she reached out and pressed one of the glowing symbols. The door hissed open. Her breath caught. Beyond the door stretched a corridor of polished black metal, its surface reflecting faint green light from embedded strips along the walls. She hesitated, the weight of her situation crashing down on her. This wasn't Earth. Wherever she was, it was far from home, and whoever had brought her here wouldn't take kindly to an escaped specimen. But she couldn't stay. Elena stepped into the corridor, the door sliding shut behind her. The air was warmer here, faintly humid, and carried a strange, musky scent. The walls curved gently, leading her forward. Ahead, the corridor opened into a vast domed chamber. Elena froze, her eyes widening. Dozens of transparent pods lined the walls, each containing a different creature. Some were small and insect-like, others massive and serpentine, coiled tightly in their cramped enclosures. One pod held a shimmering, jellyfish-like organism that pulsed with bioluminescent light. This wasn't a ship. It was a collection. A zoo. Her chest tightened as the truth settled over her. She was an exhibit, a curiosity to be studied and displayed. But she wasn't staying. Clenching her fists, Elena scanned the chamber for anything she could use, a tool, a weapon, anything. She had no idea how she would escape, but one thing was certain. She would not be caged. Elena woke to the sensation of damp earth beneath her hands. The acrid tang of sterilized air had vanished, replaced by the rich, cloying smell of wet soil and vegetation. Her eyes flickered open, and for a moment, she thought she was back on Earth. Towering trees stretched overhead. Their thick branches knotted with vines. Bright, alien blossoms hung in clusters, their petals shimmering with faint bioluminescence. The air was warm and humid, alive with the trill of unseen creatures. Sunlight, or what looked like sunlight, filtered through the canopy and scattered shafts. It was almost beautiful, but Elena's heart sank as reality set in. This wasn't Earth. It was a construct, a mimicry. The Kurelka had placed her in a cage, a highly sophisticated recreation of her homeworld. She sat up slowly, her muscles aching from her earlier escape. Her hiking clothes were intact, though her pack was gone. Looking around, she spotted a shallow stream winding through the dense underbrush. Nearby, a metallic glint caught her eye. She approached cautiously, her bare feet sinking into the soft ground. There, embedded in the bark of a tree, was a small device. It resembled a sleek black orb, about the size of her fist, with faintly glowing seams. As she reached out, it emitted a low hum, and a projection blinked into the air. The hologram displayed rotating glyphs that resolved into crude translations. Specimen containment area. Observation active. Do not approach boundaries. Elena's stomach churned. She scanned her surroundings more closely and spotted the first clue, a faint shimmer in the air between two trees. A force field. Her shoulders tensed as she moved closer. The force field was nearly invisible, rippling like heat waves. She picked up a stick and tossed it forward. It struck the field and disintegrated in a burst of light, leaving nothing behind. Elena stepped back, her pulse hammering. She crouched near the stream, dipping her hands into the cool water. Her mind raced. Every enclosure she had ever seen, from zoos to wildlife parks, had been designed to contain the animals but also to allow their captors to monitor them. If this habitat was modeled after Earth, there might be more clues about how it operated. She followed the stream for a while, wading through patches of tall grass. The shimmering force field was always there, curving around the perimeter in an almost perfect circle. It was designed to be unobtrusive, to keep the captives from realizing they were trapped until it was too late. By the time she found the next anomaly, her legs were scratched and her clothes soaked. At the base of a large tree, half hidden beneath a tangled root, was a smooth metallic node. Unlike the orb she had found earlier, this one was larger, almost the size of a basketball. Its surface pulsed faintly, and she could hear the soft thrum of energy emanating from it. Her engineer's mind went to work. This must be part of the force field's generator, she thought. A containment system this advanced wouldn't rely on a single power source. It would need redundancy, multiple generators working together to create the field. She studied it for a few moments, then pressed her palm against its cool surface. There were no buttons or obvious access points, but a faint line of glyphs appeared when she touched it. Elena whispered to herself. No interface I can recognize. Damn it. She searched the area for anything that might help. Nearby, a jagged rock jutted from the dirt. She picked it up, weighing it in her hand. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Her first strike barely left a mark on the node's surface. Gritting her teeth, she tried again, aiming for the seams where the glowing glyphs had appeared. On her third attempt, the rock chipped the surface, and a tiny spark leapt out. The hum changed pitch, higher now, almost frantic. Come on, she muttered, slamming the rock against the node with all her strength. Sparks burst from the device, and the glyphs flickered. Then, With a loud pop, the node went dark. She held her breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shimmer of the force field nearby began to pulse erratically. Sections of the field flickered in and out, exposing glimpses of the alien structure beyond. Elena smiled grimly. She walked along the edge of the habitat, testing the field. Near the weakened node, it was possible to see through it. A dark corridor stretched beyond, its walls smooth and metallic. She pressed her hand against the flickering section. It buzzed painfully against her skin, but it didn't incinerate her like the stick. The barrier was failing. Her relief was short-lived. A loud screech pierced the air, coming from somewhere deep within the forest. Elena froze. It was a sound she had never heard before, low and guttural, followed by an unsettling series of clicks. Her pulse spiked as the underbrush rustled nearby. Slowly, she backed away, gripping the rock tightly in her hand. A shadow moved through the trees, large and swift. Then she saw it. The creature was reptilian, with scaled skin that shimmered like oil in the sunlight. Its elongated body was supported by 6 powerful legs, and its head, wide and flat with slitted, yellow eyes, swiveled toward her. A ridge of spines bristled along its back as it let out another shriek. "Fantastic," she muttered under her breath. "Dinosaurs." Because this wasn't bad enough already. The creature lunged. Elena dove to the side, rolling as the beast's claws tore through the ground where she had stood. She scrambled to her feet and ran, her breath coming in short gasps. The creature gave chase, its heavy body crashing through the underbrush. She darted toward the weak spot in the force field, her mind racing. She couldn't outrun it, not for long. Her only hope was to force the creature into the failing barrier. Elena reached the flickering section just as the beast lunged again. At the last second, she dove to the ground, rolling out of its path. The creature slammed into the barrier. A deafening crack echoed as the field flared brightly, sending arcs of energy through the reptile's body. It let out a pained roar, its massive form convulsing. The weakened field collapsed entirely, and the creature collapsed with it, twitching on the ground. Elena stared, panting. She crawled forward cautiously, keeping her distance. When she was sure the beast wasn't moving, she stepped through the opening in the barrier. For the first time, she was outside the habitat. The corridor loomed before her, dark and cold. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the faint clicking of the Karelka's claws. Elena tightened her grip on the rock and started walking. She had no plan, no weapons, and no idea what lay ahead. But she wasn't going back. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, its smooth black walls illuminated by faint green strips of light. Elena's footsteps echoed in the oppressive silence as she moved cautiously, gripping the jagged rock like it was a lifeline. Every few meters, she stopped to listen, her ears straining for the telltale clicking of Karelka claws. She had no map, no sense of direction, and no clue how far this maze extended. The only certainty was that staying put would get her recaptured, or worse. A distant hum began to rise behind her. It was faint but growing louder. She ducked into the shadows, pressing herself against the wall as the noise drew nearer. Her heart raced. A few moments later, a spherical drone glided into view. The machine was sleek, its surface gleaming with the same bioluminescent markings as the Karelka's other tech. It scanned the corridor with beams of pale blue light, searching. Elena held her breath, every muscle tensed as the drone paused, its light sweeping mere inches from her position. It lingered for a moment, then continued down the corridor, its hum fading into the distance. Elena exhaled slowly. Whatever these drones were, they were part of the zoo's security system. If one caught her, the Karelka would know exactly where she was. Pressing forward, she followed the curve of the corridor until it opened into a larger chamber. Her jaw tightened as she stepped inside. The space was massive, easily the size of a football field. Rows of transparent pods lined the walls, each containing a captive creature. Most were eerily still, suspended in some kind of stasis. Others shifted restlessly, their alien forms moving with unnatural fluidity. Elena approached one of the pods, her curiosity overcoming her caution. The creature inside was serpentine, its scales shimmering with iridescent patterns that changed as she watched. It regarded her with unblinking eyes, its forked tongue flicking against the glass. "What did they do to you?" she whispered. Movement at the edge of her vision made her whirl around, rock raised. It wasn't a guard or drone. The figure that emerged from behind a pod was unlike anything she had ever seen. Amphibian-like, with slick green skin and elongated limbs, it moved on 2 legs with a cautious, almost fluid gait. Its large, bulbous eyes were fixed on her, unblinking. Elena held her ground, heart pounding. The creature raised its three-fingered hands, palms outward in what seemed like a gesture of peace. "Are you trapped too?" she asked, lowering the rock slightly. The alien tilted its head, then emitted a series of warbling clicks. The sound was melodic, almost mournful. Elena didn't understand, but the intent was clear enough. It wasn't a threat. "Okay," she said slowly, "we're on the same side." The alien gestured toward the corridor she had just exited, its movements sharp and urgent. It repeated the clicking noise, this time at a faster tempo. "You want me to follow you?" The alien nodded, or at least made a motion that seemed like one. Elena hesitated. Trusting an unknown creature in this place could be dangerous, but staying put was worse. She nodded, motioning for the alien to lead the way. It guided her through a series of winding corridors, its movements quick and deliberate. Twice they had to hide as drones passed, their lights sweeping dangerously close. Each time, the alien pressed its slick body into the shadows with a skill that made Elena envious. Eventually, they emerged into a smaller chamber, dimly lit by faintly glowing panels embedded in the walls. The alien crouched beside a console and began manipulating the controls with its long fingers. The glyphs that appeared on the screen meant nothing to Elena, but the alien seemed to know what it was doing. "Can you turn something off? Open a door? Anything to help us get out of here?" she asked. The alien made a low trill in response, tapping furiously at the console. A moment later, a section of the wall slid open, revealing another corridor. "Good job," Elena said, even though she doubted it understood her. They stepped into the new corridor, which was narrower and darker than the others. The air here was colder, and the faint hum of machinery was louder. "What is this place?" she murmured. Ahead of them, the corridor ended abruptly at a massive door. It was sealed shut, with no visible panel or mechanism to open it. The alien placed its hands on the door and emitted a series of clicks and trills, its tone frustrated. Elena frowned, running her hands along the edges of the door. The metal was cool and smooth, with no obvious seams. Her engineering instincts kicked in. If the door was part of the zoo's infrastructure, there had to be a way to override it. "Stand back," she said, stepping to the side. She picked up her rock and struck the edge of the door where it met the wall. The alien watched, its head tilting in curiosity. After several strikes, a faint line appeared in the metal, a seam. Elena grinned grimly. She wedged the rock into the gap and began prying it open. The door groaned under the pressure, but just as it began to give way, a piercing alarm filled the air. Red lights flashed in the corridor, and the hum of approaching drones grew louder. "Damn it," Elena hissed. The alien screeched, its head whipping around as the sound of clicking claws echoed from the direction they'd come. "They're coming. We've got to go." The door finally slid open with a loud hiss, revealing a maintenance shaft beyond. Elena grabbed the alien's arm, pulling it inside just as the first drone rounded the corner. The shaft was cramped and filled with a tangle of pipes and conduits. Elena and the alien crawled through as fast as they could, the alarm still blaring behind them. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a grate that opened into another habitat. Elena kicked it open and dropped down, the alien following close behind. The alarm had stopped, but she knew they weren't safe. The Karelka would be searching for them now, and they wouldn't stop until she was back in her cage. She turned to the alien, panting. "We need to keep moving. I don't know how, but we're getting out of here, together." The alien made a low trill, its bulbous eyes glinting with what she could only interpret as resolve. For the first time since her abduction, Elena felt a flicker of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. Elena leaned against a massive, moss-covered tree, struggling to catch her breath. The alien creature beside her crouched low, its slick green skin blending seamlessly with the foliage. They had emerged into yet another fabricated habitat, this one resembling a dense swamp. The air was thick and damp, buzzing with the sounds of unseen insects. The Karelka had stopped their pursuit, for now. The distant hum of drones and sharp clicks of their claws had faded, leaving the swamp eerily quiet. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead and glanced at her companion. The alien tilted its head toward her, its large, unblinking eyes radiating a quiet intensity. "Thanks for getting me out of there," she said, not expecting an answer. The alien responded with a low warble that almost sounded like speech, though its meaning was beyond her grasp. Elena's fingers brushed the jagged rock she still carried. It was a pathetic excuse for a weapon, but it had kept her alive so far. She looked around the swamp, searching for anything that could be useful: a stick, a sharp edge, something to increase her odds in this fight. Movement in the distance caught her eye. At first, she thought it was another Karelka drone, but as the figure came closer, she realized it wasn't mechanical. The creature was massive, easily the size of a horse. It moved on 4 thick legs, its muscular body covered in coarse, bluish fur. A long whip-like tail swished behind it, and its face was dominated by a pair of tusks that curved upward like scimitars. Its glowing yellow eyes locked onto Elena and her companion. Elena gripped her rock tighter. Fantastic. Just what we needed. The amphibious alien emitted a series of sharp clicks, crouching lower to the ground. Its slick skin began to shift colors, blending with the swamp's shadows. You can do camouflage, Elena muttered. Lucky you. The quadruped snorted, steam rising from its nostrils as it began to circle them. Its tusks glinted in the artificial light filtering through the swamp canopy. Elena backed up slowly, keeping her eyes on the beast. I don't suppose you have a plan for this, huh? She asked her companion. The alien responded with a single, urgent trill and gestured toward a thick patch of underbrush nearby. We run? Elena guessed. The quadruped roared, a guttural sound that rattled her chest. The decision was made for her. Run, Elena yelled, already bolting toward the underbrush. The alien sprinted beside her, its movements fluid and impossibly fast. Behind them, the quadruped charged, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Elena ducked beneath low-hanging branches and leapt over roots, adrenaline driving her forward. The swamp's uneven terrain worked to her advantage, slowing the massive predator just enough to keep it from catching them. The alien veered to the right, leading Elena toward a cluster of large boulders jutting out of the swampy ground. They scrambled up the rocks, their feet slipping on the mossy surface. The quadruped roared again, slamming into the base of the boulders. It reared up, its tusks scraping against the stone as it tried to climb. Elena clung to the rock, panting. Now we're just stuck here until it figures out how to kill us. The alien crouched beside her, its bulbous eyes scanning the area. It emitted a series of rapid clicks and gestured toward the far side of the swamp, where faint glimmers of light shone through the trees. You think there's something over there? The alien chirped in what sounded like affirmation. Elena peered at the quadruped, which was pacing angrily at the base of the rocks. She needed to distract it long enough for them to make a break for it. Looking around, she spotted a loose chunk of rock. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. She hefted it in her hands, feeling its weight. Stay low, she whispered to the alien. Before she could second-guess herself, she hurled the rock with all her strength. It struck the quadruped's flank, eliciting an enraged bellow. Come on, big guy, Elena taunted, waving her arms. You want me? Come get me. The beast roared and charged the rock face, slamming into it with enough force to make the boulders tremble. Go, Elena shouted, grabbing the alien's arm and pulling it toward the far side of the swamp. They leapt down from the rocks and sprinted through the trees, their feet splashing through shallow water. The quadruped roared again, but by the time it realized its prey was escaping, they were too far ahead. Elena and the alien broke through the underbrush and stumbled into a small clearing. Here, the swamp gave way to dry ground, and the faint glimmers of light resolved into a metallic structure partially hidden among the trees. The structure was sleek and rectangular, with smooth edges that gleamed faintly in the artificial light. It looked like some kind of maintenance shed or control station. Elena approached cautiously, her heart still pounding. The alien followed, its head swiveling as it scanned their surroundings. Let's hope this is something useful, she muttered. The door to the structure slid open with a faint hiss as they approached. Inside, the walls were lined with panels covered in glowing glyphs. Strange tools and devices were scattered across a long table, their purposes a mystery to her. Elena's companion moved to the console and began tapping on the glyphs. You really know your way around this place, huh? She said. The alien trilled softly, its movements precise and confident. Elena turned her attention to the tools on the table. She didn't recognize any of them, but one object caught her eye, a cylindrical device with a faintly glowing tip. It was small enough to fit in her hand and looked vaguely like a torch or cutting tool. Picking it up, she pressed a button on the side. A thin beam of light extended from the tip, humming softly. Hello, new favorite thing, she said, grinning despite herself. The alien chirped urgently, drawing her attention back to the console. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage leading deeper into the zoo's infrastructure. This is our way out, isn't it? Elena asked. The alien nodded. For the first time since her capture, Elena felt a flicker of hope. They were no longer aimless fugitives. They had a path forward. She glanced at her companion, their shared determination unspoken but understood. "Let's go," she said. "We're not stopping until we're free." The narrow passage stretched into darkness, its walls humming faintly with the pulse of alien machinery. Elena stepped cautiously, her new tool, a glowing cutting device, gripped tightly in her hand. Beside her, the amphibious alien moved with the silent confidence of someone who had navigated these tunnels before. "Hope you know where you're leading us," she muttered, glancing sideways at her companion. The alien responded with a soft trill and gestured ahead, its bulbous eyes gleaming in the faint light. The passage was cramped, forcing Elena to stoop as they moved. Pipes and conduits crisscrossed overhead, occasionally emitting bursts of steam or faint clicks that set her nerves on edge. Every so often, the walls vibrated as some unseen mechanism activated deep within the zoo's infrastructure. As they rounded a corner, a faint sound reached her ears, low and rhythmic, like the steady thrum of a heartbeat. It grew louder with each step. "What is that?" Elena whispered. Her companion chirped softly, a tone that she had come to interpret as cautious curiosity. The passage opened into a wider chamber, and Elena froze. The room was dominated by a massive column of pulsating energy, its core glowing with an intense, shifting light that ranged from deep crimson to vibrant gold. Cables snaked outward from the column, burrowing into the walls and ceiling like the roots of a colossal tree. The air was thick with the hum of power, and the ground beneath her feet vibrated with its rhythm. The alien approached the column, its movements reverent. It reached out a webbed hand, hesitating just before touching one of the cables. "Careful," Elena warned, stepping closer. "We don't know what that thing will do." The alien turned to her, chirping insistently, then gestured to the column and the cables. "You think this powers something important, don't you?" she guessed. The alien nodded, tapping the cable lightly with its fingers. The hum shifted, and for a brief moment, the lights in the chamber dimmed. Elena's mind raced. If this was part of the zoo's main power system, disabling it could disrupt their captor's ability to track them, or at least buy them some time. But damaging it without knowing exactly what it controlled could have unintended consequences. "All right," she said, gripping the cutting device. "Let's make some noise." Before she could act, the faint hum of a drone echoed down the passage behind them. Her heart leapt into her throat. "Damn it, they've found us." The alien trilled sharply, motioning for her to move. It scurried toward a smaller side tunnel, glancing back to ensure she was following. Elena hesitated, torn between sabotaging the power column and running. She made a split-second decision, slashing the cutting device at one of the smaller cables connected to the column. Sparks erupted, and the hum grew erratic, the light within the column flaring wildly. "That'll have to do," she muttered, before sprinting after her companion. The two of them darted into the side tunnel just as the drone emerged into the chamber. Its spherical body hovered menacingly, beams of blue light scanning the area. Behind it, the rhythmic clicking of Karelka claws echoed ominously. They raced through the passage, their footsteps muffled by the damp, moss-covered floor. The alien led with purpose, weaving through junctions and narrow conduits like it knew exactly where to go. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Elena panted, struggling to keep up. The alien chirped affirmatively, though its pace quickened as the sound of pursuit grew louder. Ahead, the tunnel opened into another chamber. This one was smaller, but no less alien. Transparent tubes lined the walls, each filled with a viscous, glowing liquid that cast eerie patterns across the room. Floating within the tubes were strange objects, small, metallic spheres, each etched with intricate glyphs. "What is this place?" Elena whispered. Her companion didn't answer, instead moving to a console embedded in the wall. Its fingers danced over the glyphs, and the tubes began to vibrate. "Wait, are you activating those things?" Elena asked, panic rising in her voice. The alien trilled insistently, its tone sharp and urgent. Before she could protest further, the hum of the tubes grew louder, and the metallic spheres began to spin within their liquid prisons. One by one, the tubes opened with a hiss, releasing the spheres. They floated into the air, their glyphs glowing brightly. Elena stepped back, holding up her cutting device. "What are you doing?" The alien emitted a calming chirp and gestured for her to lower the weapon. The spheres hovered for a moment, then zipped through the air toward the passage they had just come from. The distant sound of the Karelka pursuit faltered, replaced by sharp, metallic clanging and bursts of static. The alien turned to her, its wide eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Did you just set a trap for them?" Elena asked, lowering the device. The alien chirped affirmatively. "Remind me never to get on your bad side," she muttered, a grin tugging at her lips. They moved quickly, leaving the chamber behind and diving deeper into the maze of tunnels. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a cavernous space unlike anything Elena had seen before. It was a massive hub, its ceiling lost in darkness. Bridges crisscrossed the space, connecting platforms covered in glowing consoles and strange machinery. At the center of it all was a vast, circular structure that pulsed with light. Elena's breath caught as she realized what it was, a gate, or at least something that looked like one. "Is this?" She trailed off, her heart pounding. "Is this a way out?" The alien chirped excitedly, nodding. Before they could move closer, the familiar hum of drones echoed through the hub. From the shadows, Karelka figures emerged, their sleek, insectoid forms gleaming in the dim light. Elena tightened her grip on the cutting device, her mind racing. They were outnumbered, and the Karelka would stop at nothing to capture them. Her companion trilled urgently, pointing to the gate. It was now or never. "All right," she whispered, her eyes blazing with determination. "Let's do this." The two of them sprinted toward the gate, the drones closing in behind them. The glow of the structure intensified, and for the first time since her abduction, Elena felt hope burning within her. Freedom was within reach. All they had to do was survive long enough to take it. The glow of the gate was mesmerizing, a swirling vortex of light and shadow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Its massive frame hummed with raw power, filling the cavernous hub with a low vibration that Elena could feel in her bones. Elena and her companions sprinted toward the gate, but the Karelka were closing in fast. The clicking of claws on metal grew louder, accompanied by the ominous whine of drones. The insectoid captors moved with precision, their sleek forms barely making a sound as they leapt between the platforms, herding the fugitives toward a trap. Elena gritted her teeth. We need a way to slow them down. Her amphibious ally, whom she had started to think of as Flick because of its rapid, clicking speech, chirped sharply and veered toward a nearby console. Elena hesitated for a split second, unsure whether to stay or continue toward the gate. Trust was a fragile thing in this alien nightmare, but Flick had proven resourceful. "All right," she muttered, changing course to cover Flick. The Karelka moved to intercept, two drones descending toward the console where Flick had perched. Elena activated the cutting device with a sharp hum, its glowing beam casting flickering light across her face. She swung it at the first drone, catching its metallic body with a shower of sparks. The drone veered off, spinning wildly as its circuits sputtered. The second one fired a thin beam of energy, narrowly missing Elena as she ducked behind a railing. "Any time now, Flick," she shouted. Flick's long fingers danced across the console's glyphs, its movements swift and deliberate. The platform beneath them shuddered, and a series of loud mechanical clanks echoed through the chamber. From the walls, long metallic arms emerged, their ends tipped with multi-pronged claws. The arms began sweeping the space, smashing into drones and scattering the advancing Karelka. Elena's eyes widened as one of the mechanical arms swept over her head, narrowly missing her. "Great. You turned on a giant trash collector." Flick chirped in what Elena interpreted as smug satisfaction, leaping back from the console just as another arm swung through. The Karelka regrouped quickly, their precision unnerving. They adapted to the chaos, leaping over the swinging arms and using the platforms to flank Elena and Flick. "We're out of time," Elena said, grabbing Flick's arm and pulling it toward the gate. The central structure loomed before them, its swirling light intensifying as they drew closer. Elena could see glyphs etched along its surface, shifting and glowing like living creatures. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just a machine, it was alien in a way that defied comprehension. "Can you activate it?" Elena asked, glancing at Flick. Flick chirped uncertainly, stepping closer to the gate's control panel. It tapped a few glyphs, and the vortex's light surged, the hum growing into a deep, resonant roar. The gate was almost ready, but the Karelka weren't going to let them escape so easily. A tall Karelka commander stepped forward, its sleek exoskeleton shimmering under the gate's glow. It raised one of its segmented arms, and a pulse of energy shot toward Elena. She barely dodged in time, the blast scorching the metal platform where she had stood. "I hate these things," she growled. The commander clicked sharply, and the drones swarmed. Flick chirped in alarm, frantically gesturing at the console. The glyphs on the gate shifted faster now, the vortex growing more unstable. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster," Elena shouted. Flick trilled a response and slammed its palm against the console. The vortex stabilized for a moment, then expanded outward with a blinding flash. Elena shielded her eyes, but the light quickly dimmed, revealing the fully activated gate. Its center now pulsed with a steady rhythm, a doorway to somewhere else. "Let's go," Elena yelled, grabbing Flick's arm. The Kurelka commander moved to intercept, but one of the rogue mechanical arms swung down, slamming into its side and knocking it off the platform. The drones hesitated, their program precision disrupted by the chaos. Elena and Flick sprinted toward the gate, the energy from the vortex pulling at them like a strong wind. Just as they reached the edge, a drone fired, and Elena felt a sharp, burning pain in her shoulder. She stumbled, falling to her knees as the cutting device clattered to the ground. Flick turned, emitting a panicked series of clicks. "I'm fine," Elena gritted out, clutching her shoulder. "Go. I'll be right behind you." Flick hesitated, its bulbous eyes wide with concern. "Go," Elena shouted. The alien chirped reluctantly and stepped through the gate, its form dissolving into the swirling light. Elena pushed herself to her feet, pain radiating through her arm. She glanced back at the advancing Kurelka, their glowing eyes fixed on her. "Not today," she muttered, grabbing the cutting device. With one last burst of strength, she threw herself into the gate. The world around her twisted, light and shadow spinning together in a kaleidoscope of color. Her body felt weightless, pulled and stretched in every direction. Then, with a deafening roar, she was flung into darkness. Elena landed hard on solid ground, the impact knocking the wind out of her. She gasped, her chest heaving as she rolled onto her back. The air was different here, cool and crisp, with a faint metallic tang. Above her, a sky of swirling stars stretched endlessly, broken only by the jagged silhouette of a distant structure. Flick crouched beside her, trilling softly. "We made it," Elena said, her voice shaky. "We're not out of the woods yet, but we made it." Flick chirped in agreement, its tone lighter than she had ever heard. Elena sat up, cradling her injured shoulder. Wherever they were, it wasn't the zoo. But it wasn't Earth either. She glanced at Flick and then at the alien landscape before them. "We're not done yet," she said, determination hardening her voice. "Let's find out where we are, and figure out how to finish this." Flick trilled, and together they set off into the unknown. Elena staggered as she and Flick moved through the strange, alien terrain. Her shoulder throbbed from the drone's energy blast, and every breath sent fresh spikes of pain radiating down her arm. The sky above them churned with unnatural colors, a kaleidoscope of stars swirling against a dark backdrop. Beneath their feet, the ground was firm but translucent, faint light pulsating beneath its surface like the veins of some enormous creature. "Where even are we?" she muttered, grimacing as she pressed a makeshift bandage, a strip torn from her shirt, against her wound. Flick trilled softly, its wide, bulbous eyes scanning the horizon. It gestured toward a distant structure silhouetted against the shimmering sky. The building was angular and jagged, its spires rising like the fangs of some enormous predator. "Yeah, I see it," Elena said. "Looks as good a destination as any." The two moved cautiously, the oppressive silence of this alien world amplifying every sound they made. The vast emptiness around them was unnerving, the only motion the occasional ripple of light beneath the ground. As they drew closer to the structure, a new sound broke the stillness, a faint, rhythmic clicking. Elena froze, her grip tightening on the stolen cutting device. "That sound!" Flick chirped sharply, its posture shifting to one of tension. From the shadows near the structure, a figure emerged. For a moment, Elena's heart leapt, thinking it might be another ally. But as the figure stepped into the faint light, her stomach dropped. The creature was tall and bird-like, its feathers a glossy black that shimmered with a metallic sheen. Its sharp beak curved downward, and its yellow eyes gleamed with cold intelligence. Elena recognized it from one of the pods in the zoo, a captive like herself. "Hey," Elena said cautiously, raising a hand. "We're not here to fight. Are you? Like us?" The bird-like alien studied her, its head tilting slightly. Then it spoke, its voice a sharp, rasping sound that twisted into fragments of her own language. "Human, escaped, you, trouble." Elena blinked, taken aback by the words. "You can speak? You've been in the zoo too, haven't you?" The creature ignored her question, its gaze shifting to Flick. A low, guttural sound rumbled from its throat, and Flick chirped back, their exchange rapid and heated. "What's going on?" Elena asked, glancing between them. Before she could get an answer, the bird-like alien stepped forward, its wings spreading slightly. It pointed a clawed hand at Elena, then Flick, and then toward the jagged structure. "You. Come," It rasped. Elena hesitated. She didn't trust this creature, but she had few options. The wound on her shoulder was slowing her down, and Flick seemed agitated, its skin flickering with shifting colors. "Fine," Elena said finally. "But no tricks." The alien made no reply, turning sharply and striding toward the structure. Flick hesitated, chirping nervously. "I don't trust it either," Elena murmured. "But we need answers, and I'm not seeing many other choices." Reluctantly, Flick followed, staying close to Elena as they entered the shadow of the jagged spires. The structure's interior was even more alien than the world outside. The walls were smooth and reflective, emitting a faint, pulsating light. Glyphs shifted across the surfaces, forming patterns that reminded Elena of the consoles back in the zoo. The bird-like alien led them to a central chamber, its floor marked with an intricate, glowing spiral. At the center of the room was a pedestal, atop which rested a small, crystalline device. The alien pointed at the device. "Gate, control." Elena's heart raced. "This controls the gate? It can get us out of here." The alien's beak clicked sharply. "Out." "For one." "Not all." Elena's stomach sank. "What do you mean?" "We all escaped. We all deserve to get free." The bird-like alien's feathers bristled. "You are weak, you, slow. One survives, or none." "No," Elena said firmly, stepping forward. "We're not leaving anyone behind." Before she could react, the alien lashed out, its clawed hand striking her injured shoulder. Pain exploded through her body, and she fell to her knees, gasping. Flick chirped in alarm and leapt between her and the bird-like alien, its slick green skin darkening in a display of aggression. "You're betraying us?" Elena spat, forcing herself to her feet despite the pain. The alien's gaze was cold and calculating. "Survive. At cost." It lunged for the pedestal, its claws reaching for the crystalline device. "Not happening," Elena shouted. Ignoring the searing pain in her shoulder, she activated the cutting device and lunged. The blade's glowing edge struck the alien's outstretched arm, sending a shower of sparks and feathers flying. The alien screeched, spinning to face her. Its talons lashed out, but Elena ducked, adrenaline dulling the pain as she drove the cutting device toward its midsection. Flick joined the fight, leaping onto the bird-like alien's back. Its long fingers clawed at the creature's feathers, forcing it off balance. With a final, desperate swing of the cutting device, Elena struck the alien's leg, and it crumpled to the ground with a pained cry. Breathing hard, she stepped back, her hands trembling. The alien hissed, glaring at her with unmasked hatred, but it didn't move to attack again. Flick trilled sharply, pointing to the crystalline device. "Right," Elena said, swallowing her fear. "Let's finish this." She approached the pedestal, her hands shaking as she picked up the crystalline device. It was cool to the touch, its surface vibrating faintly with energy. The glyphs on the walls began to shift, responding to the device's activation. "Is this it?" she whispered. "Is this how we get free?" Flick chirped, its tone urgent but hopeful. Behind them, the bird-like alien let out a low, rasping laugh. "Choose wrong," it hissed. "Zoo. Never lets go." Elena ignored it, focusing on the glowing glyphs. The patterns were incomprehensible, but something about them felt intuitive, as if the device itself was guiding her. The crystalline device pulsed in her hand, and a deep rumble shook the chamber. The spiral on the floor began to glow brighter, and Elena felt a familiar pull, the same sensation she'd felt when she first entered the gate. She glanced at Flick. "Here goes nothing." Together, they stepped into the light, leaving the bird-like alien and its betrayal behind. The pull of the gate was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Light, sound, and gravity twisted together, tearing at her senses. Flick chirped frantically beside her, its webbed hand gripping hers as they hurtled through the vortex. Then, with a deafening crack, they were expelled into an open space, tumbling onto a hard metallic floor. Elena groaned, clutching her shoulder as she struggled to sit up. The room around them was vast and sterile, its walls lined with intricate conduits that pulsed with a dull red light. Flick chirped anxiously, pulling her attention to the far end of the chamber. Elena's breath caught. A Karelka stood before them, taller and more imposing than any she'd seen before. Its exoskeleton shimmered with a dark, iridescent sheen, and the two pairs of arms extending from its torso moved with calculated precision. Behind it, an array of consoles and energy pylons formed a complex control hub. This wasn't just another section of the zoo. This was its core. The Karelka's glowing eyes fixed on Elena and Flick, and it spoke in a voice that resonated through the chamber, a strange blend of clicks and tones that her mind half-translated. Unauthorized access. Return to containment or face termination. Elena gritted her teeth, forcing herself to her feet. We're not going back. The Karelka tilted its head, almost amused. Defiance is futile. You are specimens, property. Elena's grip tightened on the crystalline device, still vibrating faintly in her hand. We're not property. We're not animals. And you're about to find out what happens when you underestimate us. The Karelka raised a clawed arm, and the room erupted into chaos. Drones swarmed from hidden alcoves, their spherical bodies emitting beams of crackling energy. Elena dove behind a nearby console, dragging Flick with her as the drone's blast seared the air around them. Any ideas? She shouted over the noise, glancing at Flick. The alien chirped sharply, its fingers pointing to the crystalline device in her hand and then to the massive energy pylons behind the Karelka. You think this can take out their power source? Elena asked. Flick nodded, chirping urgently. Right, Elena muttered. Distract them while I figure this out. Flick trilled and darted from cover, its nimble form weaving through the drones with astonishing speed. It leapt onto a console, yanking at wires and slapping glyphs in a frenzy. Sparks flew as the drones adjusted their focus, splitting their fire between Flick and Elena. Elena grit her teeth and sprinted toward the pylons, clutching the crystalline device. Energy crackled around her as blasts struck dangerously close. She skidded to a stop behind one of the towering structures, scanning its surface for anything she could use. The pylons were massive, their surfaces covered in shifting glyphs and pulsating conduits. At their base, small panels hummed with power, emitting faint bursts of light. Come on, Elena muttered, activating the cutting device. She slashed at the nearest conduit, sending a cascade of sparks into the air. The pylon shuddered, its hum growing unstable. Across the room, Flick let out a sharp chirp as it leapt away from a drone's blast. The Karelka commander clicked furiously, directing the drones with precise gestures. Elena ducked as another blast struck the pylon above her. Flick, I could really use some help here. The alien chirped in response, then darted toward her, evading the drone's fire with practiced agility. It skidded to a stop beside her, its webbed fingers working quickly to interface with the pylon's base. Tell me you've got a plan, Elena said, glancing nervously at the advancing Karelka. Flick emitted a series of sharp, insistent clicks and pointed to the crystalline device. You want me to put this in there? Flick nodded emphatically. Elena hesitated for only a moment before jamming the crystalline device into the pylon's exposed circuitry. The effect was immediate. The room shook violently as the pylon's light flared, then dimmed. The glyphs across its surface flickered, and the drones faltered mid-flight, their beams sputtering. The Karelka commander let out an enraged screech, its claws slamming into a nearby console as it tried to regain control. It's working, Elena shouted. Let's take out the rest. Together, she and Flick moved from pylon to pylon, disabling each one with the crystalline device and the cutting tool. The drones became erratic, their movements jerky and unpredictable. As the final pylon failed, the room's red light dimmed, replaced by a chaotic strobe of white and blue. Alarms blared, and the floor beneath them vibrated violently. The Karelka commander staggered, its movements no longer smooth and calculated. It turned its glowing eyes toward Elena, its voice resonating with barely controlled fury. You think you've won? You are nothing. This facility is eternal. Elena raised the cutting device, stepping toward the massive console at the room's center. Not anymore. The Karelka lunged, but Flick intercepted it, leaping onto its back and clawing at its exoskeleton. The alien commander screeched, thrashing wildly as Flick held on. Elena didn't wait. She plunged the cutting device into the console, slashing through wires and panels with a ferocity she hadn't known she possessed. The chamber's hum grew deafening, and the swirling lights of the gate flickered violently. Flick leapt free just as the Karelka collapsed, its exoskeleton sparking and twitching. Time to go, Elena shouted, grabbing Flick's hand and sprinting toward the gate. The swirling vortex was unstable, its edges crackling with energy. But it was their only chance. With one final burst of speed, they leapt into the light. Elena hit the ground hard, the impact jarring her injured shoulder. She groaned, rolling onto her back and staring up at a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Beside her, Flick chirped softly, its tone tired but relieved. They were free. For a moment, Elena simply lay there, her chest heaving as she processed the enormity of what they had just done. The Karelka Zoo, its endless prison, was gone. She sat up slowly, wincing as pain flared through her arm. Flick crouched beside her, its bulbous eyes fixed on her with quiet concern. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Flick chirped softly, and for the first time, Elena allowed herself to smile. The stars above them were unfamiliar, but they were no longer behind bars. Together, they would find a way home, or at least, a place where they could truly be free. Elena stood shakily, brushing herself off as her eyes adjusted to the alien starlight. The ground beneath her feet was rough and rocky, glowing faintly in patches where veins of bioluminescent minerals crisscrossed the terrain. The air was crisp, cool, and carried a faint metallic tang, unlike the manufactured atmosphere of the zoo. Her gaze swept across the horizon. Jagged mountains rose in the distance, their peaks crowned with strange, shimmering clouds. The stars overhead formed constellations she didn't recognize, their light casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Wherever they were, it was far from Earth, and far from the Karelka. Flick crouched beside her, its smooth green skin darkening as it scanned their surroundings. It chirped softly, gesturing toward the distant mountains. "You think we should head that way?" Elena asked, wincing as she cradled her injured shoulder. Flick trilled affirmatively, its tone low but resolute. "Fine. But let's take it slow," she said. "I don't know how much longer I can keep moving like this." They began their trek across the uneven terrain, the faint glow of the ground lighting their path. Elena's thoughts churned as they walked, the reality of their situation sinking in. They had escaped the zoo, destroyed the Karelka's core infrastructure, and severed its power. But freedom didn't mean safety. For all they knew, this planet, or moon, or whatever it was just another prison, part of a larger Karelka network. And even if it wasn't, the Karelka wouldn't simply let them go. The silence between them was broken only by Flick's occasional chirps and the crunch of Elena's boots against the rocky ground. The pain in her shoulder was a constant, throbbing reminder of how close they had come to failure. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of a shallow canyon. Below, a narrow river of liquid light wound its way through the rocks, its glow casting eerie reflections onto the canyon walls. Elena paused, catching her breath. "We need a plan," she said, glancing at Flick. Flick tilted its head, chirping softly. "I don't know," Elena admitted. "Food, shelter, something. We can't just wander around and hope for the best." As if in answer, a low rumble echoed across the canyon, sending a shiver through the ground. Flick stiffened, its skin shifting to a darker hue as its head snapped toward the source of the sound. Elena followed its gaze. Across the canyon, a massive shape emerged from the shadows, its silhouette illuminated by the glowing river below. The creature was quadrupedal, its body covered in thick spiked armor that gleamed faintly. A pair of glowing eyes locked onto them, and it let out a guttural roar that reverberated through the canyon. "Of course," Elena muttered. "Because it wasn't hard enough already." The beast began to descend into the canyon, its movements slow but deliberate. "We need to move," Elena said, tugging at Flick's arm. Flick chirped in agreement, and the two of them scrambled along the canyon's edge, searching for cover. The beast's roars grew louder as it picked up speed, its heavy footfalls shaking the ground. They reached a narrow crevice in the rock, just wide enough for Elena to squeeze through. Flick darted in ahead of her, its slender frame slipping easily into the shadows. Elena followed, wincing as her injured shoulder scraped against the jagged walls. She pressed herself deeper into the crevice, holding her breath as the beast's footsteps grew louder. The creature's massive head loomed over the opening, its glowing eyes scanning the darkness. Elena's heart pounded as she pressed herself against the cold rock, willing herself to be invisible. For a tense moment, the beast lingered, its hot, fetid breath washing over her. Then, with a frustrated snort, it turned away, its footsteps receding into the distance. Elena let out a shaky breath, her legs trembling as she slid down the rock wall. Flick chirped softly, its tone low and questioning. "I'm fine," Elena said, though her voice wavered. "That thing didn't find us. That's what matters." They remained in the crevice for a while, waiting until the sounds of the beast faded completely. When they finally emerged, the sky had shifted. The stars above were dimmer now, and the shimmering clouds over the mountains pulsed faintly, as if reacting to some unseen rhythm. Elena stared at the horizon, her thoughts heavy. They had survived the Karelka, escaped their prison, and evaded a predator on an alien world. But what came next? Flick chirped, drawing her attention. It gestured toward the mountains again, its bulbous eyes gleaming with determination. "You really think there's something up there?" Elena asked. Flick nodded, its tone insistent. Elena sighed, exhaustion weighing on her. But the alien's resolve sparked something in her. It wasn't just her fight anymore, it was theirs. She took a deep breath, straightened her back, and adjusted the makeshift bandage on her shoulder. "All right," she said. "Let's keep going. One step at a time." As they resumed their journey, Elena felt the faintest flicker of hope. The Karelka had underestimated her, underestimated humanity. They thought they had captured a simple, primitive species, but they had been wrong. Elena was proof of that. And as she and Flick pressed on toward the mountains, she made herself a promise. She would find a way to contact Earth, to warn her people of the dangers lurking among the stars. Humanity might be small, new to the universe, and vastly outgunned, but they were resilient. They were fighters. And the Karelka would never cage them again.